Goedemorgen, het is vrijdag 22 mei en we zijn uiteraard live vanuit de parade in Den Bosch. En voor een aantal mensen zeg ik good morning. Waarom? Omdat we deze uitzending in het Engels gaan doen. En dat wordt lachen, want eigenlijk is geen van de gasten English native. Ja, dus dat wordt hem. Ik ga vandaag in gesprek met onder andere Daniel van Picnic, Sebastiaan van NXP. We hebben professor Dr. Anders Erik Beulen van TIAS binnen, Joshua van TCS en uiteraard gaan we nog iemand live binnenhalen en dat is Audrey, de CDO van Elsevier. Oftewel een packed program. Maar om daar een beetje, zoals dat mooi heet, structuur aan te geven, wie anders dan ons geweten gaat dat voor ons verzorgen. Oftewel Hotse Zijlstra. Good morning. Goedemorgen, Hots.
Rob, goedemorgen. Nog even Nederlands.
Even Nederlands, even gewoon voor de...
High performance digital culture. En dat is nee, wat zeg ik? High performance digital culture. Ja, precies, ik zeg het goed. Het zit met het Engels-Nederlands een beetje. Waarom is dat een interessant thema? Het is interessant omdat het gaat over digital en data en het gaat over cultuur. En er lijkt dan een soort van tegenstelling in te zitten. Hè? Dus van data is iets hards, het is iets concreets, kun je meten. En cultuur is iets wat soft is en wat je niet beet kan pakken. Maar toch, je ziet dan, dat is onze ervaring in het veld, dat een data-gedreven organisatie gaat niet zonder een cultuur die daar ontvankelijk voor is. Hè. Dus het moet ingebed worden in de juiste cultuur. Vandaar dat wij die twee thema's proberen bij elkaar te brengen en ook aan de hand van voorbeelden te laten zien hoe dat in de praktijk werkt.
En wat wil je op tafel hebben?
Nou, wat ik zeg ook, vooral voorbeelden zijn leuk. En ik denk ook wel dat het culturele aspect van een datagedreven organisatie, als dat een beetje iets meer naar boven komt, dan zou ik dat heel mooi vinden. Oké,
dus cultureel, we hebben data en we hebben pragmatisch praktijk voor. Dat gaat hem worden, dank je. All right, well, let's start to introduce my guest at first. Daniel, CTO of Picnic, welcome.
Thanks.
And Sebastiaan, if I say it correctly, it's Senior Director Generic IT Services and User Experience of NXP.
Yeah, many people say that it needs to be shorter.
It needs to be shorter, yeah. Well, CTO and CEO, that refers to us well, yeah. All right? So welcome, guys.
Thanks.
Let's start to say and ask Daniel, what is the impact on the corona crisis on your organization and your business within Picnic?
The corona crisis is certainly an exogenous shock that has changed to a large extent everything what we are doing. So, and we have seen this on three angles. On the first of all, we have seen a massive increase of demand, of consumer demand. So that means many more customers want to shop for their food online. The second one is the supply chains across all kind of different product verticals are massively under pressure. And the third one is the way how we do business. So that means that the office and also the operational culture has changed quite a bit. So this 1.5 meter economy has hit us massively. And what we see is the way how we have approached this, we have looked to examples from other industries. And the industry that is probably closest to the way how we handle this is the health industry. Right. And what we see here is that in health, you're working on two angles. On the one hand, how can you keep everybody healthy and safe? And then how can you build up and maintain capacity? So health is clear, 1.5 meters. Capacity is building up a capacity and maintaining capacity.
Right. So you've seen a tendency the last years about agile and DevOps and those kind of things. What does it mean today for you in this context for Picnic?
In an environment like where we're living now through over the last 3 months, agile is an absolute corner piece to survive in such an environment. And we look to the world in three angles. Number one is there are knowns, so stuff that you know how the future will pan out. There are uncertainties and there are unknowns. In business as usual, there is usually the knowns and the uncertainties are making 80-90% of all your business decisions. Now, in the corona situation, we have a reverse reality where you know only around 20% about the future and 80% are unknowns. And what we are doing here and the way how we are thinking about is, if you don't know how the future pans out, you can make this kind of disadvantage to your advantage. Because in essence, if you don't know upfront how the future looks like, you can focus on how do you react on it. Everybody tries to be proactive, but if proactivity doesn't help you, then you need to see how can you fast enough react to a changed environment. So therefore, agility and ultra agility, that means acting and reacting even faster, is probably the essential piece if you want to survive in the current situation.
Right. Just a quick check on Sebastiaan. Same question within NXP. Agile, DevOps, is that the way to go?
That's the only way to go currently. I believe that agility, the agile way of working brings us clarity on the structure, the things that you don't want to spend time on today during Corona. Because also what I think Daniel says, you want to have all capacity available to work on those elements that are critical.
Right.
Like enabling the business, like looking into your supply chain, but also mainly looking into what is really required to enable this new work from home principle.
Right. So Daniel, if we look to what extent does the initial trends you had, right? How does that reflect today? So we have a couple of slides to that, also in terms of how you look to a couple of those. Can we get those?
So in these slides, in the first slide, you will see that there is, if you go to the first slide, a massive trend how online groceries or people looking for online groceries has increased. So if you look over January and February, there was a kind of a stable trend, and then in March it picked up massively, so 10, 15x. On the next slide, I show, or we see now, how a normal day looks like in Picnic. So you see that shoppers are starting to shop at Picnic around 6 o'clock, and then it stays stable until around 10 o'clock, and then everybody goes to bed, and the next day is to shop again. Yep. And now, let's look in the next slide how this behavior has changed over time. So this is now a change in trend where you see that 9 o'clock customers are massively at a very large amount shopping with us. And the reason why customers are coming around 9 o'clock is this is the moment when we make new capacity available to our customers. So we have seen that customers are moving there at around 8 or 8:30, preparing the basket, and at 9 o'clock when they can shop again, then they started to shop with Picnic. So we see there now a 15x increase of demand, and which means that all the kind of resource agility that everybody is talking about in a cloud environment has moved to a new level. So every cloud provider claims to be agile, and that you can in an agile way adjust your server capacity. But with this kind of demand spikes, there is no way that any standard provider can do this. So we have built up all kind of new tools to fit this kind of demand.
Right. So you need to adapt quick. So what does it mean if you show also the last slide, please?
Yes.
So the lessons learned here, that's a good one. Please enlighten with us.
Yeah. So in essence, we have looked into a couple of different angles how to tackle such a challenge. So the first thing is obviously you need to act in a proactive manner to all the challenges. And one thing what we learned is you will never be too early. So that means you need to take measures, you need to really drastic measures. But even more, you don't know exactly how the future pans out. So therefore, you need to take measures where you look not only to the upside, also to the downside. And you will not be right because you don't have all kind of data, but you need to take quickly and drastic measures. And then on both sides, on the supply side, but also on the consumer side, you need to look into how do you build up both agility and vitality. Yes. Demand vitality means basically looking to new customers. If your old customers are no longer shopping with you, look to which kind of new customers want to shop with you and which kind of new demand behavior do they have. In the beginning, we saw that all customers are looking for toilet paper, noodles, and hand sanitizers. But at some point, there's a new demand arising beyond kind of noodles and hand sanitizers. So this is one of the angle. And the other one on the last point is about business continuity and business agility and business resilience. We all made our agility or business continuity plans. But we learned during this crisis that those kind of plans, even if you train this quarterly or monthly, are pretty artificial, and you need to see now in practice how it really works. Yeah. And what is very interesting, and that's something what I found pretty exciting about startup, like Picnic, and also the corporate world, is that startups and corporates are not so different in this world, because everybody had to change in a very short time, and everybody did. So this is probably a very interesting lesson learned from the current Corona situation.
Right. Well, thanks, and we'll go in depth later on with also in the context of HPDL. Sebastiaan, what did COVID-19 bring you in addition to the challenges, to the new insights and experiences?
I think as an XP, we really were lucky that we in the past years focused on paying down a lot of our technical debt. 4 years ago when we started, we had a lot of on-prem infrastructure, we had a lot of services who were constrained by devices. And in the last years, we really have invested in an architecture that is able to scale up and scale down based on simple, let's call it licenses, etc. Or even the cloud, I think, is a critical component. Where we shifted easily from working 5,000 people at home during a 24/7 economy, where we now see that we currently have between 13,000 and sometimes 20,000 concurrent users working from home. Engineers, third parties, continuously working to develop our products. And honestly, to say that went quite seamlessly. Of course, we had crisis management and our business continuity plans, but from an architecture and a technical debt we have paid down, we are in a good spot to enable the productivity of our company. And for sure, on manufacturing, we have our supply chain issues and manufacturing issues as we are located in those regions that were heavily affected. But honestly, to say, it's also we are able to cope with all that changes due to Corona.
Right. So a year and a half, there was an article with you about new companies, new leaderships.
Yes.
So fulfilling prophecy today, perhaps. So if you look to that today, if does it work? Does it come out for you?
So I want to say I was right, because that's natural, I think. But I need to say, of course, looking into the mirror. So what's my view on it? From focusing on a cost-cutting culture, I still believe we do the same thing. I think even in our practices, it's continuously optimizing the cost levels. The only thing is focusing on cost cutting just for the sake of having a low run rate and gross margin, of optimizing your processes to run it at the most efficient cost. And I think we have achieved the latter one now after 1.5 years, 2 years, where we're now focusing on doing the right stuff. Do we have the right architecture? Do we have the right cost level? And achieving those cost level, and indeed, and I love this example, is where we had the Corona crisis, and by the sake of adding a license key, we paid more money, but just an hour later, after we had the capability of servicing 20,000 remote users, right, rather than changing devices, moving in a data center, switching and cabling it. We really went agile from our, let's call it, architecture perspective and our solutions we have built. Yep. And that's because we have done the right things from a cost perspective, but still achieve those targets we were being set by our senior leadership. Right. So Daniel, if you look to the past and current dynamics, what does it mean for Picnic and especially within IT in your role?
Yeah, so there are probably two angles. On the one hand, there's the demand angle. So that means which kind of customers shop with us. So the entire ecosystem has seen now a massive demand for online and food. So online delivery and food is kind of the sweet spot. The interesting angle and the interesting insight that nobody fully understands at this point is how many of those kind of new customers will stay with online and with food. We strongly believe that there's a large amount of customer, and we are also analyzing this in great detail. But we will see how this pans out. On the other hand, around the technological agility, the current time is kind of a boost for the way how we build up quickly new features, but also new capacity on the demand side. So what we have seen now with a kind of 15 or 20x demand spike, that was something what nobody has ever thought in a kind of a performance or load test before, because you think about what happens with 2 or 3x kind of demand, or maybe 5x. And that has helped us also to basically bring the platform to a level where we are maybe just in 2 or 3 years' time. So that is a very interesting development in this time.
So if you take that in the context of leadership and governance?
Yeah. So if you look to data governance, we are thinking in 3 terms on how we build actually our data warehouse and data reporting infrastructure. So the first level is building up kind of reporting systems, then analytics, and then thinking about what actually can we do with this data. And we are looking always from a consumer angle. So the most important driving factor and the principle, which kind of data do we collect, which kind of data do we use, and how do we use it, is how can we make it easier for customers to shop with us? How can we easier deliver to customers at the door? How can we easier fulfill or more efficient fulfill all the demand that customers have and all the fulfillment processes. So this is the principle that we have applied for all data collection, and that is something what over time we are building up, and in the current time we are even further building up. So one of the real changes that we have seen in the current situation is that beside only capturing a top line metrics, you also need to understand what are the underlying drivers. So while we are seeing a spike in consumer demand, it's more important to understand why are customers shopping now, and which kind of customers are shopping now, why, and which ones, what are the reasons that will stay also over time that they shop in an online food world versus which ones may go back to a physical supermarket.
Earlier you said that the way to respond is a combination of leadership, governance and shock. So what did you mean by that?
So in a startup or scale-up world, the way how you organize your business, the way how you organize your teams is that you organize your teams slightly below the level that you actually would consider it perfectly organized or very well designed processes. So what this means is you, by design, look for a setup, an organization or process setup that you leave room for changes just on an organizational level. So that means we had from the beginning a way of setting up a very flat organization in Picnic. And we had from the beginning organized teams in a way that there was always room for a growth, room for development. And this kind of exogenous shocks that we have seen have led also internally to endogenous shocks. And endogenous shocks means basically that a few of our staff has actually really stepped up their game, that they took a leadership on a shared domain in a way that we could not have thought before. So therefore, a new organizational principle is now arising, while driven from an exogenous shock to a kind of endogenous new way of organizing.
Yeah. And you deliberately call that Team Picnic.
That is certainly a part of Team Picnic because we are thinking in teams. The only organizational principle is that we have cross-functional teams that are operating and working in an autonomous way towards a kind of a self-defined goal.
Right. Well, let us look to how that looks like. What is the impression of Picnic team? Yep, I think the payoff, join Team Picnic, that is well expressed, I guess. So if I go to Sebastiaan, what are the success characteristics of the NXP IT organization?
I want to build upon the story of Daniel. I think we're coming from a very corporate world. I think our heritage is roughly more than 100 years old.
So you like that music, right?
Yeah. I like that music very much. Honestly to say is that we, of course, are in transition for quite a while. And we have set out an ambition to become a total agile organization where it fits its purpose. And not every business model that we have fits, let's call this agile model. I believe the success of our organization needs to be that we can gear up any speed required for our business stakeholders, being it manufacturing, being it R&D, being it a sales or marketing organization. What I do see is that we have the same ambition, empower the people that work for us. That means that they have the right knowledge, the right skill set, the right tools, the right platforms. And I think we are in the middle of that. We are very structured in hierarchy and many layers and spans. But together, I think with our, that's called HR business partner, and also the members that we have added to the management team, we have seen that there's a clear ambition to reduce that. But that's not on all levels, and the transformation is going well. The thing is that we do start to exist feature teams, a more fluid organization that organize themselves for the biggest priority. Could be a biggest priority set as Corona, if the context or security or anything else that's going on in the organization, or a business feature that needs to go live. Could be a tape out, or could be, for example, a quarter-end close for manufacturing. And slowly we see that business context is becoming more and more dominant, rather than running a siloed IT organization as a cost center. Also something I've discussed more than a year ago, where we do see that we have more understanding about the business context, and we give so much information down into the organization. I would say horizontally, but it's still down in the organization, where the people start to take more decisions on their own. And I believe that that's key. And we're still searching for the right mix of information and autonomy and corporate compliance and security as we act in a broad perspective of product security and again cybersecurity.
But this change or transformation, is that provide you also, let's say, today's status that you can move even faster?
Yes.
And that in the context of, well, we are talking about forward and future, I guess. A lot of hybrid models are on the table by a lot of industries.
Yeah, I believe that today that we're already moving faster than we do today, and that's mainly because it's clear business context and a clear priority and a set out a clear plan. And if you cannot plan 10 or 15 days ahead, then we have another challenge. But I believe that we, with a clear roadmap, a clear context that we are currently having, and of course, Corona changed every priority that we had initially in my environment. But I believe that we go even faster. And by embedding the tools, by embedding the processes, but I think what clearly is a needed focus is the people part. Do we equip the people with the right knowledge and understanding, and also are they ready to deal with that continuous level of ambiguity or that continuous level of change?
Yep. So if you look then to today, so what kind of a top line opportunities you're looking at today?
What we could do really from a top line perspective is very clearly our function is eliminate waste of any process that we do. Mm-hmm. So I do see a lot of data-driven initiatives starting up, and many parts of the organization, being manufacturing, optimizing the license management, optimizing the R&D processes, and everything. I remember a good town hall with one of our, let's call R&D leaders. I need stable IT and big data. I need stable IT and data. And every slide he closed down with that statement. And we do see that's the hunger that you see in the organization. Give me the right data to make the right decisions. Give me the right data to make my processes more efficient. And I think even our NXP product portfolio, where we build the IT edge devices and the sensors and the radar and the capabilities that we have, we are creating capabilities to even create more data relevant for autonomous driving or IoT or even our corporate processes as smart manufacturing.
Right. So it's an interesting time also for you.
Yes.
So and if you combine it with the 1.5 year ago story about new company, new leadership,
yeah,
you're feeling comfortable?
I'm feeling very comfortable, but also what Daniel said, the ambiguity towards what will this new 1.5 meter or 6 feet economy bring us. It depends on where you operate in the world. I'm very curious what that will do from a people perspective, an engagement perspective. And I think for myself it was quite a good learning, now 3 months at home, that I need more people around me closer than 1.5 meter. Right? And I don't know if many people had that, but it's getting boring working from home.
Right.
Because it's good to operate yourself very effectively by a 30-minute meeting every single 30 minutes. But somehow spinning off ideas, catching a brain idea from someone else, that's something that I still miss. And I think for enabling top-line growth, even for NXP and the success, enabling advanced collaboration and advanced working together, even when working remote, that's extremely challenging.
Right. So I will ask you to take the camera and address those old gray-haired and blue suits guys in terms of what do you expect for the next, as an advice, as a call to action. There's the camera.
So that is unexpected drop, but here we go. What I really hope for is that you never stop learning. And I think we have so many new opportunities. And I think it's time to leave your existing biases at home and start thinking about what can really help myself and my team to achieve the next leap in the organization.
Great. Well, thank you, Sebastiaan. So let's look to a vision of NXP.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Every bold step forward faces barriers. And with each hard-earned advancement, we come to expect more from life. Because innovations grow our world. They change how we live, and what we can make possible. Life is now lived always on and on demand, where wants big and small are fulfilled with just a tap or an ask. So then, what's now possible? Mobile commerce, autonomous driving, next-gen wireless, smart appliances, industrial automation, all made possible by NXP. We are the gateway to the responsive interactions that are redefining life as we know it. NXP expands the possibilities for technology producers around the globe. From seamlessly integrating infrastructure to effortlessly streamlining data from the cloud to the edge, we bring what's next closer. We're not only advancing technology, we're advancing how we live. This is NXP.
I think a nice impression about what NXP is looking at as a future, and I think Sebastiaan turned light on that. So at the table there is Eric Gebler. Welcome, Eric. I have to say you're a full professor, not a half, but a full professor at the Tilburg University in the TLS Business School. Just what's a full professor?
Well, that basically means that your appointment is related to a specific domain and you got a chair for that.
Perfect.
And my chair is on information management, so that makes the topic of today, data-driven culture, I think very relevant because that's also at the heart what we lecture at Matthias Business School.
Right. Thank you. Eric, you're also responsible for the HPDO program, the High Performance Digital Organization, and we're going to talk about that in a twofold, actually in a threefold. But let's first go to Daniel. Sebastiaan just shed a light on the role of data at NXP. What role do data insights and analytics play at Picnic at this stage?
So data is the driving factor for everything what we build, how we operate, and also how we see the future. And in Picnic it went basically in 3 stages. So we first collected data on a reporting level, so that means understanding on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly basis how we are doing. Then the second stage was basically to collect data also on a real-time level, so analytics and everything related to analytics. And the third stage, what we now started a year ago, is feeding back both reporting and analytics data to the operational systems. And that basically built the flywheel of data, where data from yesterday's operation is driving today's operation and improves the way how we operate tomorrow. So therefore, as an example for the logistical planning models, but also the operating models, every day we are becoming better, not by developing new software, but by just collecting a bit more data and understanding better on how we operate.
So and what is your role and attitude towards an ideal data-driven corporate culture?
So if you're collecting data, you need to understand very well on why you collect data, which kind of data you collect, and to which kind of volume and velocity you collect the data. So in this environment, we have set up principles that define for the purpose, which kind of purpose of data we collect, and also that we review regularly the governance on the kind of the data collection principles. This is one angle. The other angle is also all the data or all the tools that we use in order to derive new decisions from the data are reviewed regularly, so that they are still complying with the underlying governance rules.
Right. So you have been in one of the previous sessions of HPDL. So why do you support this HPDL program?
So in the startup world, you're playing 2 games. So the first game is you want to be part of the Champions League. So that means you're building up a business that can play in a top league. And then the other one is, the other game or the second game that you're playing is staying in the Champions League or winning the Champions League. So we have, over the last years, played a game that we are moving the organization towards the Champions League high-performance digital organization. But now the next stage, and this is why we are supporting also the HPDO, is we want to stay there. We want to stay there also while we are growing, whilst the environment is changing, while teams are developing to the next level. And we believe that HPDO is a platform that can help us to really understand where we stand and how we need to build it in the future.
Right. Well, thank you. So, Eric, if I go over to you, so what has the HPDO process yield so far in results?
Yeah, I think we've done a lot of things since 2017. I think we've been able just to work with the community and to derive a couple of conclusions so far. And I would like to share the 3 most important conclusions so far. Sorry. And then I think later on we can talk about the data-driven elements of that and the culture. So first finding that we have so far is that there needs to be 2 maturities within organizations. It's not only IT maturity, it's doing it together with the business. And I think that acknowledgement that you have to do that together, I think that is very important. One of the findings from our study is that they are both important, but that the IT maturity is more mature than the business maturity. I think that's an interesting finding, but also I think it's fair to say that the bias, the group that we work on, is maybe related to that. Second point is, I think that we found is, and that's 2 years ago, that the strategy, the digital strategy, that was an inhibitor. Many companies were not at par at that moment in time. I think if we look to the market now, I think we've done much, much better. So that's no longer something which is worrying me from working with the HPDO community. And finally, and I think that's also an interesting one, we saw back then that a lot of organizations were using the technology, high-performance digital organizations in standalone services, in optimizing their back office. So think, for example, RPA. What we see now is that they're developing new business models. And so I think a nice example is where utility companies partner with startups to provide peer-to-peer platforms for electric charging. I think that is really a very data-driven business model, where also technologies such as blockchain are coming together and able to settle transactions. So I think that's where I would like to pause.
Right. And if you take it to the next level, so what will be the focus in the upcoming months and why?
Yeah,
in this program?
Yeah, sure. I think we rightly choose for a focus on data-driven leadership. Because I think we learned also from the 2 speakers earlier today that is at the core. So that's why we're focusing on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to have back here Corny Mulders. He's the Chief Information Officer from Utrecht. And he's going to do a deep dive on what he did here a couple of weeks ago in this same show and talk with us how that data-driven organization is putting it forward. So I think we're trying to combine and share the insights and the learnings that we have, and we'll continue to do that.
Right. Well, before we continue in this discussion about HPDO, I want to ask Daniel if you want to take the camera and give a top-notch advice on your peers on, let's say, the high-performance culture or the data part. You may pick the choice, right?
Okay. So probably the most important advice that I can give here is you will have never enough data. So you should collect enough data, but you need to combine the data that you collect also with a vision on the future. And if you both together build to a combined and coherent model, then you can build radically new services that will customers love.
Well, thank you, Daniel. So just a short break. Let's go to our Dr. Anders Arnoud van Gemeren, the editor-in-chief of CEO Magazine, with his, always funny vlog.
Stel je een science fiction film voor waarin zich de vreemde situatie voordoet dat de tijd steeds sneller gaat. Je moet in hoog tempo leven, harder werken en steeds sneller beslissingen nemen. Maar voor zo'n wereld hoef je niet eens een film te bekijken. Het is namelijk onze wereld, de wereld van corona. En als het virus enige impact heeft op digitale transformatie, en het heeft het, dan is het wel versnelling. Wat we in een maand deden, moet nu in een week. En wat we in een week deden, moet nu in een dag. Welkom in de toekomst, een wereld waarin digital de norm wordt. Het lijkt op een nachtmerrie, hè? Steeds sneller en sneller moeten werken. Maar er is hoop, want we hebben de afgelopen jaren de perfecte tools ontwikkeld om met de huidige situatie om te gaan. Agile werken is de grote reddingsboei, want voortdurend veranderen is precies datgene waar Agile voor bedacht is. Automation is nog zo'n reddingsboei. En last but not least hebben we kunstmatige intelligentie. We zijn tot de tanden gewapend om met deze science fiction wereld om te gaan. En dat is maar goed ook, want er is nog een uitdaging. Terwijl we bezig zijn om sneller te leren werken en beslissen, moeten we onze digitale producten en services al gaan opschalen. Er is geen tijd meer om de dingen na elkaar te doen, zoals we gewend waren. Iemand zei eens dat de definitie van tijd is datgene wat voorkomt dat alles tegelijkertijd gebeurt. Nou, de vraag is maar of die definitie nog klopt.
Yeah, I told you. It's a deeper thinker, right? Dat is oude Arnoud van Gemeren, the editor-in-chief of CEO Magazine. So, new at the table is Jassu. Jassu, you're the country head of TCS in the Netherlands. Welcome.
Thank you.
You like it so far?
Perfect. I think it is also quite insightful to hear what Daniel and Sebastiaan spoke about.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go to your view on data and maturity on your Dutch clients, right?
So Rob, we work with more than 50 different customers in this Dutch market. And what we see as a common pattern with all of them is that they are quite advanced about their thinking and their strategy around digital transformation. But now when you specifically go down into data, which is one of the key elements of digital transformation, you see various patterns in terms of their maturity. And some organizations are able to leverage the power of data in a much different manner and also to redefine their business models. So one excellent example of that is Damen shipyards, some organization which is very hardcore or something that is very close to the Dutch community. We did an interesting IoT program with them on connected vessels, whereby they were able to collect a lot of data from the various ships, and thereby they are able to offer predictive maintenance as a service to its customers. So rather than being a traditional shipbuilder, they are now able to offer, or they are able to become a true maritime solutions provider.
Right. Another sample perhaps, Albert Heijn?
See, I think when I look at some of other examples, so we heard about the example of a picnic in terms of how they are looking at data.
That's why I called it Albert Heijn.
But Albert Heijn, it's quite an interesting story what they're doing. For example, the data that they're collecting from all the bonus cards, they are using that to provide personalized offers to each and every consumer of theirs. And that is the power of data that you can see in terms of how different customers are thinking about their data strategy.
Right. So what are the characteristics of that mature clients, if you would like?
Yeah, so maybe let me take the example of, for example, Yumbo at this stage of time. Since we are already on retail customers, let me talk about Yumbo. So at Yumbo, we have implemented our TCS Optimera competitive pricing module, wherein they are able to make, or they are able to give a unique price for every customer, for a unique price for every product at every given location. And that too in an automated manner. And this is a brilliant example of a customer which is quite mature when it comes to able to, or a great characteristic of a mature organization in the terms of data. And if you also look at, maybe you can also look at, for example, another customer like Randstad, where the vision of becoming a data-driven organization was driven right from the CEO and the chief, as well as the CDO. And they have enabled themselves to cater to this kind of challenges that are coming our way.
Yep. So you also had, I guess, during the fight period, had to fight together with your customers, especially on, let's say, critical infrastructures. So that went well?
So when Corona hit us, we obviously had to really change the way we were delivering services to our customers. And it was extremely important that we respond to that crisis. So we had two main priorities at that point of time. The first was obviously safety of our employees. And by making sure that our employees were kept safe, they were able to ensure that they kept the lights on for our customers. And it was extremely critical that we kept the lights on for our customers, because many of the customers were extremely important in keeping the national infrastructure running. So they kept the lights on of the country. And we were able to do it by deploying a new transformative operating model called Secure Borderless Workspaces, wherein we were able to move more than 95% of our employees. We almost have 500,000 employees globally. We were able to, in a matter of days, we were able to transform our entire organization, where they were able to work remotely in a very secure manner. And not only, when the benefits of this model was just not only the safety as well as business continuity, but now with the data that we are able to collect from this way of working, we are also focusing around wellness, the sustenance, as well as the growth of each and every employee, each and every customer, as well as their businesses.
Right. I was just sipping a glass of water, sorry for that. Let's look to an impression on that, on how TCS is looking to COVID-19. Right, I think a great impression on how TCS is looking at this stage to COVID-19 and their customers. So if I go back to you, Eric, so let's look to the COVID-19 in the context of data-driven.
Okay.
Data maturity.
Can I use an example of my own university? Because as any organization, we were hit very hard. We needed to overnight change our classes from in-class to an online. I think we did extremely well there, and that's also something where I feel really proud that we could keep up with offering the experience to our students which they had before within class. But then we need to think about the future. Being proud now sitting here and doing nothing, that's not what we should do. So now we're working collectively to see how we can use data to identify new markets and to see how we can bring our offerings forward. That needs a good understanding of where we are, what is important for our students and also for our potential students. So that is in terms of doing proper analysis, building scenarios, how we hopefully will be prepared for a future post-COVID.
Right. Ilsu, question, if you look to the HPDO program, why is TCS involved?
See, I think I live here in the Netherlands market for the last 15 years. And Netherlands is such an interesting country because it is generally the pioneer when it comes to any new things. And even when the world was hit with digital transformation, it was one of the pioneering countries in terms of this revolution. And from TCS side, we have a lot of experience and expertise around the topic of data. So when we got this opportunity from ICT Media under the leadership of Professor Eric Bulen to do the study on high-performance digital organizations or business effectiveness of organizations on data maturity, we picked it up with both hands. And we were able to contribute effectively to this cause by bringing our tools, accelerators, as well as our global experience. And we did a lot of assessments using our DATOM assessment framework. DATOM is Data and Analytics Target Operating Model, so it's a maturity framework. And we were able to analyze the effectiveness and maturity of a lot of organizations here in the Dutch market. And also compare that with global experiences that we have got. Now, we also have got a lot of benefits because of that. We got a lot of insights around various sectors and how the organizations are moving, specifically around data. We got a lot of insights and around their strategy and how they're planning to execute. And also, since the Dutch always has been a pioneering country on a lot of new topics, we also get a lot of good insights around how the rest of the world will act in the coming years.
Right. Just for the viewers, there is a URL. This will be shown at this stage. The landing page there where you can see it's on IT Executive within the HPDO program. There are all kind of activities there, white papers, best practices, and that's the foundation of that program. Eric, what practical tools are you going to give companies?
Well, I think what we learned from the study is three important things, and I think it would be good to share that now here also with your audience. I think first and foremost, I would say what we have been able to demonstrate is that data-driven behavior pays off, and I think that's very important. The way that we get to that conclusion was working collaboratively with the community. We had lots of challenges, workshops where we worked together. We did a survey, had really discussions just to understand that topic, and that was driving us to that conclusion. So I think that's one. And I think that is aligned with what Jojo just shared here in terms of maturity. One of the findings that we had is that the maturity of Dutch organizations that is higher than what we see in maturity across the rest of the world. And I think that is something to be very proud of. If we look to that, then basically in the maturity stages linked to the data model that was already mentioned by Josu, we typically see that there are more stage 3, which is scaled mature companies in the Netherlands than in the rest of the world. So I think that is something we are not there yet in a model of 5 stages, but being predominantly in stage number 3, I think that is very good for Dutch organizations. I think what was also very remarkable from this study is that the organizations that were in the top quadrant, that were organizations that have actively assessed their maturity. And I think that is something, just monitor also your data maturity, that helps you to use your data in a far better way. The third and final thing that I would like to share in terms of the study that we did is that having the basics right, that is something which tremendously helps to increase your business effectiveness. That sounds very obvious, but even if it's very obvious, I think it was remarkably how, especially in the analytics automation, the scores were very low. And that is, I think, something in terms of an area to work on, that will be very helpful to further leverage and benefit from data and make your organization more data-driven.
Right. So we have a slide for that to show you. There it is.
Yeah, so
give us the final concluding question there. Huh?
Yeah, so what we see here on this slide is in the top quadrant, which is data-driven HPDO, there are only 9 organizations. That is something in terms of a very low percentage being in that top quadrant. So that is something where really there is the room to improve. But let me explain a little bit more about this graph. It got 2 axes. The first axis is relating to what is the maturity. What we did in the study is compare that with the average maturity. So if you have a higher than average maturity, then you're more to the right. Of equal importance is the other axis, where we looked at business performance. And what we did is we used the 4 elements which are part of Business 4.0 behavior. That is what our knowledge partner TCS is using. And the 4 elements are data driving mass personalization, 1, creating value, 3, leveraging an ecosystem. And I think especially the partnering part, that's becoming more important. I think that's what we also could had learned this morning from the other speakers. And the 4th one is embracing risk, which is relating to Agile and DevOps, which we also talked before. So that is the way that we structure that. That is how that is working from the top quadrant. One final observation that I would like to share is and that is that we learned from this study, that smaller companies are easier to become data mature. I think scale is really impacting organizations just to lever that. So they just need to be even try harder to become a data-driven organization.
Right. So one of the subjects we discussed last time during one of the workshops was digital literacy.
Yeah. I think that's adding towards what we already talked about in terms of making sure that as an organization you move. And you need to spend a lot of time and effort on that.
Right. So let's look if we can make a live connection with Audrey. And Audrey is the CDO, the Chief Data Officer of Elsevier. Is she live? I'm live. I was live. I stay alive. Do we have a live connection with Audrey? Yeah, let's try it again. This is nice, this live broadcast, techniques. And did I told you that the last time we had a small technical problem with rendering and buffering on YouTube? So we are now 17 seconds not live. That's the trick. So we are nearly live. Hello, Audrey.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
How are you today?
I'm good. I was trying to get you on my computer, but you've landed on my phone again. But that's all right.
Right.
How are you?
I'm fine. You are in London?
I am in London at home, working from home. At my dining table at the moment because everybody's spread around the house, so that's good. Not unusual to the rest of them, yeah.
No, and I understood that you even had more workload than before. So there was not a picnic in the park.
No, it's a shame, isn't it? Especially with good weather. Exactly.
It is.
I suppose this is where you realize when you can't walk around the corridors and answer questions quickly. You have to have meetings now. So,
right.
And of course, all of that requires you more connection via Zoom, I suppose. Yeah.
Right.
But it works.
Good to hear.
How has your meeting gone so far?
Well, it was, or it is still interesting because we have, of course, that fine discussion about HPDO, High Performance Digital Organization, and we are going into the subject of course, data maturity. And then last time when you were present during one of the sessions, you raised your hand and you say, whoa, how about digital literacy, guys?
Yeah.
So, but give me first a question. How is it within Elsevier regarding COVID-19?
Actually, really well managed, I must say. Very impressed with, within a day after we decided to close offices, everybody could work from home effectively. I think we were prepared. Not just Elsevier, wekelijkse across the globe, I think, was well prepared to operate from home. But of course, we have the personal challenges of working from home, where you have people who have children, young children, who have to manage with no schools. I think we need to be thoughtful and mindful of that. And I think so far, the message from the leadership across the organization has been incredibly supportive and thoughtful. And people have felt that. And I think we are moving in the right direction. And of course, from a content point, we are supporting the whole cause of finding a cure for COVID and making sure the data and literature is freely available across the globe. So I think overall we're in a good position.
Right.
Yeah.
So why is that topic, data literacy, so important for you?
I think you see, if you think about investing in data organizations, we all say you're talking about high-performing digital organizations. To be high-performing digital organizations, data and analytics is a must. It is not an option. It has to be done. And of course, businesses are investing millions and millions of dollars in creating data hubs, self-service analytics, AI, ML, and all of that stuff. But all of that is going to be deriving very little value if we don't invest in people who actually have to use it. So if you don't equip them, then you don't. You have the same scenario of big data where companies invested millions in technology, got very little value because they didn't consider data in a much more detailed way. So I think data literacy is critical to be able to actually leverage all the investment and drive the business forward. So I think it's important, yeah.
So what should in your way be the call to action there if you look to that HPDO program then?
I think it starts with why data literacy, right? And I think it's a concept that I think still is quite new, and people are starting to talk about it. It will only grow a lot more. So with anything new, there's a lot of uncertainty, and people saying, "Oh, hold on, why do I have to be data literate? I'm doing my job okay. What does it mean? If I do a test and assessment and I'm not data literate, does that mean I lose my job? Am I at risk?" So it's very much about actually socializing, making people comfortable with the topic of data literacy and saying that we all need it in some shape or form and to some level. Some roles require more data literacy and some others. And I think once we get people into the right mindset and the behavior to say, this is going to help me in my job, and it's also going to help me in my life and how, because I interact with systems and online solutions all the time. So get them comfortable. And then I think the companies need to invest in actually coming up with a program that addresses the core competencies we need to develop in our people to be able to use data effectively. So when I talk about that, I mean people being able to actually identify a problem and frame it in a way that they can communicate more effectively. Understanding bad data means bad decisions. You need to make sure what quality is important. But at the same time, allowing people to say, you can make good decisions with imperfect data. You don't need all the data to be perfect. You need to know where it is flawed and where it's not, so you can make the right decisions. But all of that, to change people's behavior to that, requires courage, you see, and courage is hard. If you're confident, you're more courageous. You just can't tell people to be courageous. When you're confident, I think people are automatically courageous. And that's where I think data literacy comes in. It allows us to, ask the right questions, communicate in context and communicate more confidently, but also allow our people to see what we mean when we say certain things. And as we give them instruction with greater confidence and clarity, then they're more aligned to what we want to do. And they come along the journey. And when they come along the journey, then they're able to invest in their learning and to use it effectively. And I think it is not a job of HR and it's not a job of particular learning form. It's everybody's job to make sure that our people are comfortable using data. And technologists, as well as business leaders and general managers, everyone should take an interest in that.
Yep. So we will have a session with you later on in June or July, I think June. So we will make sure that we will inform you all. 2 questions left. A, what's on your painting? We always try to, if we have a glimpse in somebody's home, what's on the painting?
That is art by Charles Blackman. It's called Tatiana as a Bride.
Ah, great. Yeah. So if you look to this COVID-19 and you look to data and digital and the data-driven discussion there is, so what do you foresee, for an example, within new models within Elsevier? Are they going faster? Is your whole plan, let's say, let's move that 2 quarters up front, or?
I don't know if we're going 2 quarters up front, but what we are doing is trying to say exactly what is the priority to accelerate at the moment, because we have the economic challenge which we can't get away from. And if our customers are facing it, we will face it. So it doesn't mean then you have endless buckets of resources to throw things at it, especially if you want to retain all your people and continue to have a good, solid organization, maintain your talent. So I think we've got to be pragmatic, but at the same time, clear about what are the priorities that will move the needle in the right direction. This also means that what will have the biggest impact on our customers' experience and what will have the biggest impact on our organization's success and growth. And I think then you have to probably sidetrack certain initiatives and focus on the thing. It allows people to really be much more precise about where we want to go. And we all are, when you don't have these kind of uncertainties around, we look for an ideal world. We say we are pragmatic, but we still operate in a relatively comfortable ideal world. I think that's all now up in the air, so we are trying to be a bit more pragmatic, a bit more precise in these things, and putting ourselves in our customers' shoes to hear what will drive the best outcome for them.
Right. Final question, what would be the absolute call to action for your peers? Just a one-liner, Audrey.
I would say use this time to engage with your people and make them comfortable using data, because they're using it now through remote So I think start getting them together and align to them.
Well, it was great to have you. I would say London, do the points. So, and we will speak each other later. Thank you, Audrey.
Speak later. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks. Ciao.
So, what do you think about that, Eric?
I think that was a very concise way of saying how important data is and how you need to take along your organization and bring them to the next level. And I think that is what chief data officers should do.
I agree, and I'm looking forward to have Audrey in one of these sessions. Good topic, data literacy. I guess you agree also.
No doubt about it, 100%.
100%, that's right. All right, so let's go to a little wrap-up. And of course, who else than our conscience, ons geweten, Hotse. Ging het goed?
Ja, ging prima. Ja, dit zijn natuurlijk prachtige verhalen met zoveel diepgaande kennis, informatie. Het is natuurlijk gewoon lastig om daar een draadje uit te halen. Om te zeggen van nou, hier gaat het om. Ik denk dat als je terugbrengt naar het aanvankelijke thema, de high performance digital culture, denk ik dat het culturele aspect er in meerdere opzichten uitkomt. Ik denk dat Audrey het heel goed illustreerde, dat je zegt van ja, je moet je hele organisatie daarin meenemen en datavaardig maken. Ik denk ook dat zowel bij Picnic als bij NXP kwam naar voren de agility en het agile werken en het adaptief kunnen zijn als organisatie om daadwerkelijk wat met die data te doen, dat het heel belangrijk is. Ik denk dat een groot deel van de weerstand om met data te gaan werken misschien in zit dat mensen het wel weten, dat je informatie hebt waarop je kan sturen, maar dat je het niet kan sturen. Dus die autonomie om daar wat mee te kunnen doen is denk ik heel belangrijk. En ik zag er ook nog een lijntje en dat adresseerde Arnoud ook heel terecht, denk ik. Dat je op basis van die informatie, die data, ook een stuk automation kan inrichten natuurlijk. Hè, waar ook de organisatie cultureel klaar voor moet zijn. Ja.
Dus ik zeg, net zoals de vorige, strik erom.
Doe er een strik om.
Strik om, niks meer aan doen.
Ja.
Prima. Mooi, dankjewel Hotse. Ik ga mijn gasten bedanken. Daniel, Picnic, Sebastiaan, NXP, uiteraard Erik Beulen. Dankjewel voor de insights. Josu, thank you. Now I mentioned it in Dutch and on the switch, so that's a funny one. And of course, I want to thank Audrey for her presence from London live in the studio. What will happen? Wat gaan we doen om het netjes af te ronden? Wij zijn er vrijdag weer, dus dinsdag zijn we er even niet. De redactie moet even bijkomen. We moeten alle spulletjes weer even strak zetten. Het is best intensief, de redactie, zullen we maar zeggen. En dan zijn wij er vrijdag weer. En dan zijn wij er vrijdag met onder andere Aart van Dame Shipyard. We hebben Rob van Rijksmuseum. Dat wordt ook een hele mooie. Maar dat is onder andere, want we zijn daar nog steeds mee bezig. Maar voor nu zeg ik, stay safe, stay healthy en fijn weekend.